Welcome everyone
Recording
to
in
our
progress.
first CBRC meeting today, January 20th, 2022. Still getting used to saying that. And we're kicking off with our committee members, newly elected, others familiar faces. And so why don't we, it's a small enough group, why don't we just kick it off with introductions? And I can start. My name is Norberto Delgadillo, and I am the Chief Financial Officer, pronouns he, him. And I think that it'd be also good to know like the why, right? There's always so much going on, but why do you want to be part of the CBRC community? I think that is a good question. I want to pitch out that for me, from my perspective, I love the work I do, and just my upbringing and my skill set. It's just like philosophically aligned with what I want to do, and as a child of immigrant parents, I appreciate the value that education and the opportunities that education brings. So I'll turn it over to Director Hollins.
Hello. Hi, I'm Gary Hollins, newly elected board member representing Zone 5. Reason why I want to be on here, so I can give you the political reason, I can give you the real reason. The real reason I was voluntold to be on here, but I am looking forward to this process, and as I learn this process and the mission and the charge of the CBRC, that we are making sure that we are monitoring the budget to go along with the strategic plan, which is ultimate goal is to make sure our board goals are obtained. And so I will move it to Ms. Renee Anderson.
So hello, I was recruited into PPS in 1985, and so I've been part of the district ever since, even though I've been retired since 2012. And I was asked to be on this committee, and I have to say, I said, really, why? But I was given a very good answer, and I said, oh, okay. So that is why I'm on the committee. I will pass it on to Hobbs.
Hi, I'm Hobbs. My pronouns are he, him. And what brought me to CBRC? I was also told to apply, but I also want to be here to learn, and to hold PPS accountable. Sorry, I came in late, so I'm not sure who has already went. Um, Jordan, can you pass it to someone for me?
I can just go for you, Hobbs. Thank you. Glad you're here. So my name is Jordan Cooper, they, them pronouns. I am here because all kinds of reasons. I'm actually very excited to be a part of CBRC. I've done a lot of digging into it the last few months, and I've learned a lot about its purpose and where it's gone. And I think that it's just a great, wonderful accountability process for PPS. It's a great way for the community to be involved in the process. And so just as much time as I can be here to support that process is exciting to me. So yeah, happy to be here. Joe, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Joe, he, him pronouns. Why am I here? I'm sort of interested in finances and such, and someone recommended I apply, so here I am. I'm gonna toss it to Alexandra.
Hi, thank you. I'm Alexandra, she, her pronouns. I work at PPS with the finance team. I joined PPS somewhat recently in June, but I've worked in budget outreach for several years. I worked at the City of Portland in their budget office, supporting budget outreach and engagement. And then we've had several interesting budget years there. Lots of really difficult conversations around divestment with public safety. And I also worked around coordinating the Portland Utility Board. So that's a really interesting and engaged group. So those are some of the perspectives that I bring. And I'm really happy to be here to support my colleagues where I can and support your efforts here on the committee. I think these committees can be really powerful when we can elevate the community perspectives and contribute to transparency and accountability. So just very happy to be here. Let's see. I'm not sure who is left. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name.
It's Ailey.
Ailey, okay.
Roger, it looks like both of us are still to go. It's Ailey. So the EI is A, the LI is Lee, and the DH is extra. So it's like Haley without the H. Scottish Gaelic name, so extra letters for fun. I am on the PPS board with Director Hollins. I have tried to get out of Cbrc for like 7 years now, but I keep coming back. I was on the board, the Cbrc board, I think in 2014, 14 through 16, and then came back my first year on the school board as the kind of connector to Cbrc. Love this work. It's complicated work. It's so important to have community voices. It's where I began to get really passionate about what the community can do through the administration of the district, and eventually led me to run for school board. So that's me. And I'm going to pop out of the meeting and pop back and then pop out again because it's one of those days. So I was just in the Fun for PPS meeting, and everybody wants to do stuff on Thursday nights. So it's kind of exciting. So I'm very thankful for all of you. And I'm going to call on Roger because he's been on Cbrc, I think maybe longer than I've been alive.
Not quite, but I've been on Cbrc for at least a decade. So I bring institutional memory to the system. I'm a PPS graduate. I graduated in dark ages back from Cleveland High School. I have daughters who graduated Grant and Franklin. Parents both taught in the system, and so I have a relationship with a number of schools in the system. And one way or the other, our family has been connected with PPS for over 50 years. So I use he, him, and as you new members will find out that the board adopts policies throughout the year, and they have impact as to how the superintendent constructs his budget or her budget. I've served both types of the superintendent, and it's our role to comment and suggest, and as we will review the what they call the operating guide. I have a couple comments to make there after Norberto leads us through that. So I'll shut up now.
Don't ever feel compelled to shut up. The wealth of information that I think we need to take advantage. And I know that Ilona is on as well. And I'm not sure. Well, hey, correct me if I mispronounce the name. As someone who that happens regularly to, please let me know. And we're going around name, pronouns, introductions, and your why for being part of Cbrc.
Yes, thank you. My name is Ilona J. Wilson, and I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I can only keep track of 3 things at a time, so I'm hoping that the last question is my why. So, well, I'm a PPS graduate, and I am very, very dedicated to this community. I was able to be the first in my family to break the cycle of poverty and addiction, and I'm very very focused on ensuring that I'm not the last. And so, I remember hearing folks talk about how a budget is a moral document and just the crazy impacts that budgets have on directly on our youth, and they that has the opportunity to really change the trajectory of our progress if we are able to really invest in our budget and really target funding. So that is my why.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And as we start getting into the meat of the agenda, and Roger, Dr. Hollins, and Dr. Lori all touched on kind of like the goal and purpose of CBRC, and there's still like so much more to unpack there that I think brings us all together. And from like the very basic perspective, it's like borrowing language from the documents and guides that have been shared, where the CBRC receives direction from the board and is charged with reviewing the budget and prepping and getting ready for the superintendent's proposed budget, which happens in April. So as we work through the process over the next several meetings, we'll arrive to this point where we have a conversation or a meeting, a working session, and eventually a conversation with the broader board and get into the superintendent's proposed budget, and then subsequently a follow-up in May as far as comments on the proposed budget, in addition to another very critical component, but also just kind of like brass tacks from the perspective of getting some of the requirements, is the CBRC also monitors and advises the board on the local option levy funds. So very critical funds that we're always very grateful to receive these additional funds, which go towards specifically funding teachers. So that's all encapsulated as far as like the core work of how we document and share what's in the operating guide. But I also would welcome Dr. Hollins, and I think Dr. Lori looks like she dropped off one of the in and out moments, to just add additional context or additional thoughts as far as like our collective why.
So I'm going to butcher your name. So if there's a nickname or a shortened version of the name, I'll be glad to say that.
Totally go with Berto.
Okay, Berto, there we go. In echoing Berto, yeah, I mean, he's absolutely right. This is very important work. And, as a board member, we look to the community to get the other side of the equation, right? We get to get the other side of the story, and to see like what are your interests? What is on the ground level, brass tacks? What is it that you're looking for, right? And so by bringing that, based on what you excuse me, what you see is that for instance, we use a strategic plan as kind of our North Star, and that should give us an outcome of what the board is looking for as far as our board goals, right? And for us to be here and to make sure that we're going on track with that, that's helpful. And we need that other monitors, other eyes that's looking at this as well, because we can forget something, right? Or we cannot see something that's there that you guys see as well. So I think this is very important work, and I'm just excited that we have a diverse group to be able to look at this. We have a diverse group that is coming and that can really see through your lenses as well. And so that's really inspiring for me, and that's why I'm really excited to be on here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hollins. And as we get into like the next part of our agenda, I think as far as how we approach the work, I think about myself as a liaison to help empower the conversations, and really this being the CBRC. It's not Norberto's meeting. It's not the CFO's meeting. It's like, how does this group come together to meet that charge? Will there be times where I don't have answers? Absolutely, and so it's like, how do we continue that dialogue? And that's part of the unpacking. But I think what we can provide is help provide some guardrails to help the conversations go, and those guardrails being made of information and details that kind of keep us moving towards the superintendent's proposed budget. So with that being said, there's the opportunity to then elect a chair and a co-chair who kind of own the meetings and help set the agendas, help set kind of like some of the key topics that we should be engaging or having conversations around to get towards achieving the CBRC's charge. So I really want to turn it over to the group to open it up for nominations, and we can start with chair and methodically work our way through there. I don't believe it's as formal as our board meetings, and I will be the first to admit, and Dr. Hollins, I don't know if you memorized Robert's Rules of Law and all that good that stuff. So I'll look towards the group here to keep us on point on that order.
Gotcha. I do have some knowledge of Robert's Rules of Order, so I can help out a little bit. One of the things I got was a book for Robert's Rules of Order. So
in brief, and it's
right,
like,
I gave little bits and pieces, but yeah, I'm here to support however I can.
That's good news, Gary, because there's been board members in the past that have woeful knowledge of the Robert's Rules of Order. Those of us who came up through PTA are probably pretty well versed with it, but not always. But anyway, as long as I have my mic open and in the interest of moving us along, most of us don't know really one another, but I'm wondering, Renee, would you be willing to be our chair?
It's on mute, but that was very clear. What?
Yeah, that looked like a yes to me. The smile said yes.
So I was just looking at the team. We have like half of the people that were here last year. What happened?
We had a handful of folks who resigned, and just for the perspective of COVID and a variety of other reasons, it was a tough recruiting year.
I will also say that
Jordan,
there's some people who are not here tonight who are on the committee. So it would be just slightly bigger. I think there's 8 members currently.
So Claire wasn't on our committee. She just came. She was just at most of the meetings, right?
Correct.
So,
as a staff member.
So Alexandra, are you representing Claire, or you are actually on the committee?
I'm not on the committee. I'm a staff member.
So okay, so you're okay. I'm not trying to make up stuff, but I actually am the chair of we're having a fundraiser for Pass on Earth this year. I'm on the board for Oregon Alliance of Black School Educators. And as you know, well, you might not know, but it's a volunteer organization. And most of the people who are in the leadership work, like they're your principals and they're. So anyway, I said that to say that I have a RAPSI. And then I also am the program coordinator for the Black Student Success Network. And that's just three. That's just three of the things. They take most of my time. So I'm thinking coming up with the agenda. I mean, I'll help somebody, but doesn't somebody want to be the chair and I'll help be the co-chair? I'm honored that you asked me, and I have a hard time saying no, which is why I have like 7 committees. So I would not do you justice. I'm just saying. But I'm willing to help.
If I were the chair, I would guarantee you that we would start on time. I'm not a great believer in what I call Baptist time, where you start the 11 o'clock service at 10 or 11:15 or whatever. I'm happy to work with constructing agendas and that kind of thing. Historically, the chair and the vice chairs have ended up being the scrivener for writing the final report or recommendations for the committee. Largely from experience, we learned that having that system worked more expeditiously than having each individual write a section and try to meld it and so on and on it went. And some of our sessions went 6-7 hours in length. And I'm not interested in doing that. Ilana, are you interested in being chair at all?
Sorry, just caught something in my mouth. But I am, I think I'm 7 months into being executive director of Next Step and Next Step Action Fund. So I have a lot, as my, they believe in me. And I feel like I have a lot of work to feel comfortable in that.
And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This organization is bad A word. I know that we're being recorded, so I won't say it, but I'm super happy and glad to be here. And also glad to be engaged in that and also figure out how we can get more youth engaged. So I don't think that I would be a good chair because I do think that we need someone that's gonna keep us on track, but I will be heavily engaged. I don't know if there's the third inline position, but I could take the third inline behind Miss Renee. And I would happily nominate Roger as our chair. We need someone to keep us on track.
I will just point out that, Joe, are you having to leave a little bit early? I don't know if you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, I just got to leave a bit early, around 6:30 or so. 6:20, yeah.
Oh, 6:30. Okay, you're fine then. All right, I just wanted to make sure you had time to speak before you had to head out.
So we still need a chair and co-chair. I just said I would help. So Jordan, dear, I noticed, I think we were getting emails from you. So so I'm thinking you already have a role.
Yeah, I think I actually forgot to say that earlier in my introduction of myself, but I'm the confidential executive assistant to Noberto, so I'm a staff member, not a committee member.
One idea is, and obviously there's a nomination on the table for Roger, and we could then wrap up co-chairs and vice chairs at the next meeting. And Jordan, I was going to ask you, I know there were some folks who couldn't make it today. and with the explanation conflicts, right? I think another PTA or something actually was happening Thursday, and maybe that it would make it next meeting. So just throwing out their ideas. It's like maybe we get there halfway with follow up next session, or if there's opportunities to identify all the elected individuals, that's another option. But definitely want to be here to support and listen, hear y'all out.
Alberto,
Yes.
are the people who are not here, are any of them from last year? Because so Joe, you weren't here last year, were you? Yeah, so I'm thinking brand new people might not be ready for this, but do we have some other last year people?
Yeah, so
Tonight?
yes,
Jordan
Renee,
has the list.
We have, I think, 4 folks who are from last year, continuing on this year.
Okay.
And I think that included Lisa, Alana, yourself, and Wong Samuelson. But I think those are the 4 that, and Roger. So is that, let's see.
Oh, so only one additional last year person? Oh.
Oh yeah, so it's just Lisa, Alana, Roger, and yourself, Renee, who are continuing from last year. Everyone else is new.
And we can't ask our board member, Director Hollins, because he's already volunteering. He's got his plate full. So I couldn't do that to you, Gary. Woo. Okay, well.
Well, I do have a suggestion, right? So we do have someone like Roger or who has been nominated anyway. It would be nice maybe as a vice chair, we have someone that's new. So that way we are looking to, succession type thoughts here when I think about that. So maybe we have someone who's been here before, like Roger, and maybe someone like Joe, or whoever, someone that's new to take that vice chair position.
So I have a recommendation. So we have some people who are not here this week. Because I don't, unless somebody else wants to volunteer, but we have some people who are absent, and perhaps one of those people wants to be a chair or vice chair. So we've nominated Roger. We could vote because we have people. And then next week we could talk about vice chair, but that's what I'm putting on the table because there are people who are not here. Oh, wait, Lisa's coming.
Lisa just entered the room.
Yeah.
Hi, Lisa. We're hopefully all is well. We are going through rounds of, or we're having a conversation regarding electing our chair and co-chairs, and there's a nomination for chair for Roger. And we were also just like thinking through, because there were a few folks missing, like and some other folks who have very busy schedules, busy lives, who may not necessarily want to take on the co-chair or vice chair. So that's kind of where we are right now in the midst of the conversation. But if you don't mind spending a minute introducing yourself and your why for CBRC.
Sure. I'm sorry I'm late. I actually had logged in on my work Zoom and so wanted to get out of that and come back in on my personal one. So apologies for the delay there. So I'm Lisa Selman. I have a sophomore at Lincoln High School. And one of the reasons I wanted to get involved is I work in budget and financial management, and it was a way for me to stay involved with the kids' education and just I think as the direction of Portland Public Schools is changing and the priorities, I felt that I wanted to be part of that. And so that was my reason for getting involved. And so last year was my first year on the board and learned a lot. And so again, looking forward to this year and seeing how things have changed and challenges the schools face and how we can all support the school board and all of you. So
Great. Thank you.
Well, the pregnant question is, would you be willing, Lisa, to be a vice chair?
So I I should also mention I work full time and have another child as well who will be heading off to high school. So I'm happy to think about it and get back. I just don't want to overpromise if that's kind of a non-answer answer, but I can think about it for sure.
Why don't we, to just move things along, I'll agree to work with the staff for the agenda for next go around, and let's postpone electing anybody.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Thank you, Roger.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sorry, it cut out just a second. Could you repeat that? I'm taking notes.
Oh, that incidentally, it's good to know that the staff is doing minutes. Back in the dark ages, we used to alternate doing that, and that was a real. I don't want to resurrect that system.
I'm happy to keep it, Roger. I'm happy to keep on.
Anyway, what I suggested was that I would be happy to work with staff to construct the next agenda for the next meeting, and that we postpone electing a chair and vice chair until that meeting.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. We will do that, and when we reconvene next, we'll kick it off with going through electing chair, co-chairs, and vice chair. So then the next item we have on today's agenda is really just to calibrate on resources available. I know that Jordan's been awesome and sending emails, sending information, as Renee mentioned earlier, and they're helping us stay on track. So we wanted to ensure that you all have access to the material. You received the emails and you're here, so that's already a win. And then being able to access CBRC information on our website. There is a Google Drive that we have that has some of the other historical information. When I think of YouTube playlists, it's not like the greatest hits, but it's the videos or recorded sessions that if you're curious, where did we leave off last, or what did the Roger talked about the charge of the chair and co-chair to kind of write up that final memo to the board. So that's in one of the final sessions as well. So if you're curious to view that. And then we'll also, for today, we also want to just touch on the calendar. But more importantly, making sure you all have access. And if you do not, or you have issues with that, please reach out to Jordan, and they'll make sure that y'all can access it and have the appropriate privileges, or just guide you to it. Any questions on that? So regarding the calendar, I want to turn it over to Jordan to just highlight. I believe we can share it. Do we have it? I don't see it hyperlinked. So.
Oh yes. Are you wanting to look at the dates?
We can do one or two things, and I want to be mindful of the groups. We can. I think through email communications, most folks have had access to the calendar. So we can talk about the dates, or if there are any sort of concerns, they can be communicated via email or highlighted, or we can all say, hey, looks good, because we already reviewed it. So I just want to open it up and make sure that, hey, folks have access to the calendar, aware of the dates, and kind of like what we'll be working to. It really comes down to 2 meetings a month, getting up to the superintendent's proposed budget in late April, and then the subsequent meeting in May. And I am trying to find the
I have
calendar.
a quick, I can share the
Okay, or if you can put the link in the chat,
overview.
either way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the calendar, and just so everyone knows, and in case you have missed that, the calendar is kind of available in a couple of places, but there is a shared Google Calendar, and then there is this spreadsheet that I created that just kind of shows you a quick overview of all the dates. So I definitely suggest using the shared Google Calendar if you can, because I will always have the meeting agenda and link in there, but I'll also email it to everyone.
I previously put them on my Google Calendar as a hold, and then when Jordan does his magic, it pops up, and I got 2 on the calendar. But I know what's happened, and that's how a non-tech savvy person deals with this.
So you're doing pretty good, Roger.
Like, it works.
You got here
it's a
tonight.
system. Yeah.
So yeah. And I will make sure to email the Zoom links and everything to you, probably the same week that we have a meeting, or the week before.
Great. So then the next item we have is for the committee to review and adopt the operating guide. And I'm going to copy the link, if I do this right, and put it in the chat as well. And so I really want to give y'all a few minutes, about 10, 15 minutes to review it, and feel free to add comments to it, highlight areas. There are some like procedural things that we can clean up. It talks about generally starts meeting in October, or talks through the voting process or electing members and so forth. But I think that there are some key components there regarding mission and a variety of other elements that I think are more pertinent. So as you review this, feel free to chime in, add comments, and then we can continue our conversation on that.
Well, I understood our homework was to look at this ahead of time, so I have done so. And one thing I would comment, it would be helpful if you put page numbers on the pages, because they're not that. But on the second page, it says what the CBRC does not do, and it does not set salaries and staffing levels, decide whether or not a service or program should be provided, or make district policies. Understood. But we do comment on them, and I don't know how you would reflect that, but for example, in recent years, we had a board member that was really intent about adding librarians to our schools, and increased numbers of librarians were provided in the budget. As I recall, we in our report did comment about endorsing that and encouraging that librarians be provided each school. So I'm not clear exactly the drafters of this. This was probably the last time we met in person. I noticed 11/8/2020. But anyway, so that was the comment on that page. Then at the top of the next page, I highlighted avoid personal conflicts of interest. We did have a previous board member, or CBRC member, who worked in professionally as a person that invested in retirement funds, and was ardently suggesting that PPS divorce itself from the PERS system, and that was an instance of what I perceive as a conflict of interest. Berto, I'll take advantage of the nickname, pointed
Please
out
do.
that our work begins October and goes through June, and then elsewhere it says we're on the next page, and about in the middle it says November through June, so it's inconsistent. Then there's reference to how the agenda is made. Suggested items for the agenda are to be directed to the CBRC chairperson. That recalled a like practice that the committee has followed for a number of years, is that when we have questions of staff, that we don't individually go to staff and ask our question, that we direct them through our committee chair. So sometimes we have multiple members asking similar questions and so on. It's better to for staff not to have to be responding to 8 different members or whatever where our numbers are. So I that isn't addressed particularly anywhere, but that stimulated that memory. If you're I was glad to see on the last page mentioned about attendance. That's been a bugaboo in the past. We've had some members that really attended no meetings until the very last, and then wanted to be able to sign the report and so on. So anyway, I was glad to see that an attendance type of policy is being suggested here. And then what the last page says, when does CBRC duties cease? And essentially it says that once we rendered our report about the budget and the local option levy, we've stopped, but yet we're appointed for a 3-year term. So it's maybe a little confusion there that might be clarified. So those were the comments I had.
Thank you, Roger. And note to others, as Dr. Lori just shared, it never ends. All joking aside, I want to just open it up, see if there's other comments or response to information, to feedback that Roger shared as the team collects notes and updates. I think that we can incorporate this and update it and eventually share it back out, but just also want to make sure that there's additional feedback.
I thought we gave our questions to the PPS staff, that was the PPS staff who were attending the meetings. I didn't know we went somewhere else to give. Because usually, like when Claire was on and she would talk, we just give her our questions right there, right?
I think it's if people have questions like via email or at other times, so that staff's not getting inundated by like, you know, the same
Oh, okay.
question over and over again. So it's like outside of the meeting, if you had a question about materials, that you would send that to the chair, and then the chair would sort of take everybody's questions and email those to staff.
Okay.
It's to kind of like honor some of the balance of staff time. But yeah, in a meeting, you can feel free to ask Milberto anything. Put him on the hot seat. That's great.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And if you guys want to change that and have everybody just go straight to the staff, we can talk about that. But it was to try to like, you know, if everybody has the same question and the staff has to answer it 6 times.
That makes sense. You're talking about when we're not in the meeting. Okay.
And I believe at some point towards the latter part of the meetings last year when I joined, I think Claire introduced like a Google form to help just from an intake perspective as well. So we could introduce that as well. And there's just this link that continuously helps us collect and keep information. I do prefer that. Usually there's hundreds of emails in a day. So to help us collate and organize ourselves, that works, but obviously we can support the committee as necessary.
Yeah, I will say, like, just to clarify the difference in question, if you have operational questions, you know, for me particularly, just about, you know, access to things or you know, some of these shared resources we have, I'm happy to, you don't have to necessarily submit those anywhere. You can certainly still email or call if you need to.
Other comments, and if you're making comments on the document, that's awesome. We'll go through those as well. But if there's something you want to share with a broader group as well, and obviously, you know, please do, and we can incorporate accordingly.
Can I ask why it's limited to 2 students?
Yeah.
Thought on that was just it had been 1 student traditionally. We actually expanded it to 2, and I think because of the numbers of people on the committee, we want to keep the committee small so you all can do really deep dive and work together. And so that was the reason to limit it to 2, because I think the total on CBRC is max 12. Is that correct? So that was the reasoning. So we doubled the number of students we've had. I think we had 2, 3 years ago, but before that, it had always been 1.
It looks like the max is 14.
Okay.
So the percentage.
Yeah, with community, yeah, it's 12, and then at the 2 total 14. Yeah.
And historically, we've had some good years where student attendance has been good, and then we've had other years where students didn't attend at all. So it's a variable.
And I would say the same is true of adults, though. We've had some years where the adults on the committee all attended, and we've had some years where the adults on the committee did not. So I think, for me, when I was the CBRC person 3 years ago, it was just talking about the percentages, and that we wanted to have opportunities for students. We also wanted to have a balance of different perspectives and views. And so that's why we said 2 students out of the 14.
And then can I ask what kind of scaffolding is in place to support these students? Because budgeting is really hard. Doing it for my organization at 25, and it's confusing as hell. So just curious, what kind of scaffolding?
I'll share that just generally speaking, not just for the students, we created a budget 101 video. And in addition to that, opportunities to ask questions. We put these like QR codes, trying to get high tech, right? So obviously if you're watching on your phone, it's kind of tough to then do that. So, right, that's one of those catch-22s we'll eventually figure out, but really create those opportunities to ask questions, because just generally speaking, it's hard to get to making recommendations, making decisions without building that understanding right up front. So I think Joe and I had a conversation at one of the board meetings as well, as he's just like had all these great questions. So I think those are like perfect opportunities, whether it's through this Google form to submit questions, or like, hey, watch the video. If there's questions, there's a link there to get you to a Google form to submit questions. And so that's important. Will it, just from prior experiences and having different community conversations, it's never going to be 100%, right? There's always going to be these gaps in understanding, but it's being making ourselves available to help unpack some of that, and providing resources is part of our role here in doing that. So that's definitely something we can continue to work on.
I watched that presentation, and I really commend you for doing it. It's been my experience over the years of serving on this committee that you learn something new every year. We had a previous chair who took 3 years to begin to master the acronyms that get thrown around in this business. And having worked with government professionally and in the military, alphabet soup is what makes it run. And if you don't understand an acronym, raise your hand and ask for it. I always insist in as a publications editor that you spell out an acronym before you use it. And so CBRC would be community budget, so on, spelled out, and then you can use CBRC. So good job, Roberto, and I really like that to establish a basis for understanding.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and full aware that it could have easily turned into a 15-hour video. So I was aware to not do that damage to people. So, but we have a plan to do more videos on different and expand on different topics. So that's eventually, we want to build a library, kind of like a wiki for folks to access and do that. So that's the eventual goal. And so we're starting out on top of everything else, but trying to commit ourselves to create those resources to help build understanding. So, but I appreciate it. Thank you. If there are no other comments on the operating guide, we can have a conversation around, we talked about the meeting dates. And I know, Roger, you you volunteered to help us set some topics for next meeting. I think also, just for the sake of opening it up to the group, as we build our understanding and kind of start ramping up, just some general ideas that can serve as pre-work. And also we can touch on, because I also want to be fully aware of everyone's life outside the CBRC, and so I want to be mindful of if folks have the time to do pre-work or not. So I just want to create that opportunity to review materials at the meetings, and right, we'll find that balance, and as the chair and co-chairs take it from here. But some topics as for consideration for next week is just like, what are the board goals? What is the strategic plan? And so we talk about it, but like, can we name the 4 themes, and then the priorities and everything else? What is how has that evolved from where we were last year? We talked about priorities and shifts to how the plans evolve. The board approved it. Our new strategic plan was, I say recently approved, but it's like 6 months ago now, in June, but that's still recent for this, for putting a plan together to help be the North Star for the district over the next few years. So that's some ideas, but obviously want to open it up and see if there's other suggestions, ideas, and then we can work with Roger to fine tune that for our meeting. And some of those suggestions could really come back to some fundamentals and building understanding. So if y'all watch the video and there's like, you know what, that doesn't make sense, or maybe it's the opposite. I love that. I'd like to know more. I think that's some options there to consider as well.
I'd like.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd like an update on some of the things that we did vote on that were in the budget last year. And I know there have been some changes. And so talking about why some of those changes were made. And so anyway, I'd like the history of last time and where are we? So we got to the end of that year, and now where are we this year, and what has changed? That's what I'd like to know, instead of me looking for it. So you know, we have a budget from last year that was submitted. So what changed? Does that make sense?
It does. It's kind of like, where do we leave off, and where are we based on where we left off?
And I'm particularly interested in the ESSER funds, the ODE funds from gosh, I can't think of the department.
The SIA, maybe?
SIA.
Yeah.
So
To piggyback on what Renee has just asked, I think we're actually asking for an evaluation of our strategic investments. Some ESSER, SIA, and so on are indications where resources have been appropriated and allocated to certain purposes. Are those purposes being accomplished with the investments that were made, the decisions that were made in the budget, the changes that were made in the budget for reasons? What reasons were they? And did those changes result in the desired goal that for which those funds were allocated? My wife happens to work for the Finance and Administration Operations at PSU, and they're having to do the same thing. You know, it's well and good. For example, the board, I don't know, several years ago, tried to step up the training of our staff to deal with dyslexia, and resources were allocated for that. Are we showing manifestations that that's been effective? Does something more need to be done, or does it need to be discontinued altogether? You know, just as an example.
That makes sense. And then and being able to explain the why or why not, right? And kind of like understanding where we are and trying to get some information there. At some point during the course of our meetings, we'll invite Dr. Renard Adams to come give us some information. Some of you might remember Dr. Russ Brown. I briefly overlapped while his time here, who was essentially our data guru, and so Dr. Renee Adams brings that same mindset and attitude regarding research and assessment and accountability to help us tell that story and bring that information. So I'll definitely connect with him as he's been deep diving on getting up to speed. He's new, and so I say new, but it's already 2022. So he started over the summer. Where does time go?
Well, it's understandable that some investments take several years to manifest results. So it's the fact that we allocated something last budget year, maybe for the first time, it's unfair to expect a result that right away. But nevertheless, we don't want to be 10 years down the road and be pumping money into finding that they've been going to the waste paper basket. So.
Okay. Well, if another idea or agenda item surfaces between now and the time we get together, definitely reach out to us and let us know, and we can coordinate and see if it's whether or not it's a big lift to have a conversation. Depending on the timing, we can support that. And yeah, as we get to the last item on our agenda is really just opening it up to you all and see if there's any questions or feedback, comments as we get ready to start this journey.
When we ended the year last year, I do believe that it was going to take 2 years to do Benson, or was it 3 years last year?
I do not know.
I believe Benson is slated to be at the Marshall campus for 3 years, unlike the other high schools.
Was that always?
Well, I don't know whether it was always, but I think that's the case now. So,
Yeah.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah, so Benson was slated to be at Marshall's for 3 years.
So last year was already slated to be 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I just assumed it was going to be 2 years, and I just heard 3 years. And okay.
Yeah, that was on the plan when they moved, just because Benson has so many extra things that they have to account for when they was built, when they in the process of building it. So it was always been a 3-year time frame.
Okay. Thank you.
I might point out that Benson and projects like that are bond matters, and this committee really doesn't have purview over those. There's a separate committee of the bond accountability committee that's charged with that. So.
I just figured somebody on this committee would be able to answer that question. It was just a question I had in general.
Just as a heads up, my practice has been as a Cbrc member to follow board meetings and subcommittee meetings, and I have, during this COVID period, I've been less able to do that faithfully, but it's my way of staying informed as to what the board is doing, and policies they're developing and so on. And I feel it makes for a more informed discussion when we're doing our work. But I'm retired, and so I have the liberty of doing that maybe more readily. But I volunteer on a daily basis over at Franklin High School. So I'm not exactly sitting on my hands either. So.
I'm sure they appreciate you being there. We appreciate our volunteers. If there aren't any other questions or comments, I believe we can close. I don't think it's necessary to sit idly for the next 50 minutes. I hope you all are okay with not doing that.
Can I, Norberto, could I quickly just
Yes,
ask,
absolutely.
I just want to circle back to one thing that I may have missed. So just the dates for upcoming meetings, did we have a decision on whether or not those dates were good, or are we going to circle back to those next meeting and vote on that? I just want to make sure everybody on the committee has kind of input on whether those dates work for them.
I would just say on March 31st, I might miss a part of the meeting, but I will be able to come. But I might, my sisters are coming here, and we'll be at Depot Bay celebrating all three of our birthdays. No, they're not the same day though. We're not triplets. They're very close.
That's actually what came to mind. I was like, wow.
They're close together. So
Gordon, why don't you remind us what the date for the next meeting is, and rather than have us open that link and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jordan, I think that we're good with the dates. We didn't specifically take action or vote on it. I don't know if we need to, but I think that the bigger concern was if there were any big problems to let us know. But I think we're good.
It was just about the frequency, because we're going to have a lot of them very quickly, but we also started later in the year, so if that works, I'm cool.
I'm sure.
Historically, the earliest we have started is September, and we used to get briefings on SPED and ELL and so on, major programs, but lots of years we've not gotten started until January, so it's varied.
Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we will stay in touch. Thanks, everyone.